Welcome to the Paul Lovette Show, the show where truth meets bold patriotism. I am your host, Paul Lovette, a proud and unapologetic Black American conservative. Today we're returning to the criminal referral for mortgage fraud that New York Attorney General Letitia James is accused of committing. First, the Washington Post reported that a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia has been impaneled. Next, we are going to explore the concept of criminal intent. Please note that views and opinions expressed in this video are my own and do not constitute financial, legal, or professional advice. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Any use of copyrighted material is under the fair use for purposes of commentary, criticism, and news reporting. The walls are closing in on Letitia James, and she has been running her mouth and making things much worse for herself. I have the video of her allegedly expressing criminal intent. Please keep the lips flapping there, Letitia. First, the Washington Post has reported that the grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia has issued subpoenas related to Letitia James' mortgage applications for the Norfolk, Virginia property. That's the Sterling Street property. I'll start by discussing the Virginia grand jury's impaneled and what actions they have taken so far and Letitia's big mouth. Next, I'm going to discuss and dive into the timeline of Letitia James's alleged mortgage malfeasance to help us understand the potential criminal intent she has exposed herself to. So let's start with the grand jury impanelment, and this is all focused on the 604 Sterling Street, Norfolk, Virginia property. So since the U.S. Federal Housing and Finance Agency Director William Polte's April 14th, 2025 criminal referral letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, alleging that New York Attorney General Letitia James has shown a pattern and practice of mortgage fraud dating all the way back to 1983. Things are getting very serious for Miss James, and the water is about to boil. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, is investigating Attorney General James for potential mortgage fraud linked to her real estate transactions. Additionally, the grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia has reportedly issued subpoenas related to the allegations. Now let's take a look at due process and the grand jury. The most important thing that the DOJ via the FBI is ensuring is that New York Attorney General James receives a fair and just process. Very important. Something that she denied President Trump in the victimless crime case that she brought against him a year ago. By issuing subpoenas, the grand jury is ensuring it examines all relevant information, supporting both justice and the rights of all involved by preventing decisions based on incomplete evidence. So the grand jury has a solemn duty to uphold here in the interest of justice. So the grand jury's main function is to investigate and determine whether there is sufficient evidence to indict or formally charge a person with a crime. If and when the indictment is handed down, we will know that justice has been served. Unlike Democrat operatives' protestations of President Trump's guilt after his indictment, I expect either an apology for the president or the same favor regarding Letitia James's presumed guilt on their part. So one of my principal goals when presenting these episodes is for us to learn something or relearn something. Today, I'm going to take a look at the legal concept of intent or mens rea. This is something that Sam E. Antar recently explored on his website. So let's bring up our first slide. What is mens rea? In English and in the context of law, we say intent. In law, the concept of mens rea, which is Latin for guilty mind, allows the criminal justice system to distinguish between someone who is set out with the intention of committing a crime from someone who did not mean to commit a crime. Mens rea refers to what the accused individual was thinking and what her or his intent was at the time the crime was committed. So let's step back out here. So the definition of mens rea, a noun as a noun, is 1, a person's knowledge that his conduct is criminal, 2, intent, and 3, wrongful purpose or guilty knowledge. Mens rea is particularly damning if proven for Letitia James because she has been an attorney since 1989, and more importantly, she is the sitting New York State Attorney General. She cannot say she did not know. For us lay people, we look at the trifecta of circumstances, all involving the same person, Letitia James. So let's step back in. So our first evidence of mindset for Miss James, being 1, the 1983, she allowed her father to use her name on loan documents where he accidentally lists her as his spouse, which entitled them to a lower mortgage rate terms. Now let's look at our second evidence of mindset. In February of 2001, fate strikes again. Letitia James gets a mortgage loan to buy a 1 to 4 unit dwelling that just a mere 19 days prior was certified by the New York City Building Department as a 5-unit dwelling, as indicated on the issued certificate of occupancy. This mistake on her part once again entitles her to better loan terms, such as a lower mortgage rate and loan qualifications. And here is the certificate of occupancy that clearly shows it is a 5-unit dwelling. And now let's move to our third evidence of her mindset. Fate strikes a third time in August 2023. Letitia James, New York State Attorney General, provides a special power of attorney to her niece to purchase a home in Norfolk, Virginia. The power of attorney states that the property will be her, Letitia's, primary residence. This mistake, once again, just happens to conform to the loan requirements that all borrowers have to have the home as their primary residence for 12 months to get the most favorable loan terms. Lower requirements, of course, and lower mortgage rate. So that's the financial gain. And here is an excerpt from the power of attorney that shows the error. And of course, this is sourced from Sam E. Antar, his website. So next, for us lay people, these 3 acts of fate, if you will, establishes in our minds a pattern, or as Letitia James says, a pattern and practice of mortgage fraud. To me, the layperson, these things establish her mindset or her intent as discussed above. Now, let's take a look at a recent smoking gun and public act of intent from James's very own mouth. So, the Association for a Better New York Power Breakfast, is it going to be future heartburn for Letitia? So let's start with what Letitia said at the ABNY Power Breakfast.
This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, but prior to that, I had indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. And in the mortgage application, I indicated that I would not live in Virginia and I was not a resident. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for enforcement for their investigation, when in reality, the power of attorney, it was never used to determine my eligibility for a mortgage for my niece for a home in the state of Virginia.
So there you have it. Now let's dive into this a little deeper. Letitia James states the charges are baseless, even though there are legal mortgage documents with her signature with incorrect information. Remember the documents I have presented so far and in our prior episodes. Next, Letitia James, by her own words, on the power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, and she trailed off. Note, the date on the power of attorney was executed was on August 17, 2023. This is significant because this mistake is made after she twice made certain that the mortgage broker knew she was not a resident of Virginia and would not occupy the home as her primary residence, along with her niece. So let me show you. So here we go. These are the documents here showing on the the second and the third, this her reaching out to the broker to try and clarify and clean up the documentation regarding her residence. So as we continue, so next, Letitia James, by her own words, prior to that, the POA, I indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. And in the mortgage application, I indicated that I would not live in Virginia and I was not a resident. So note the date for these two items being August 2nd, 2023 and August 3rd, 2023 in my prior slide. So in my opinion, this sets the case for criminal intent on James, part because of her alleged mindset here is to ensure the accuracy of the documents with respect to not occupying the home as her primary residence. But as with her pattern and practice, a mere 14 days later, she created a power of attorney, which was witnessed by two New York Attorney General employees, indicating that the home would be her primary residence. So this mistake guarantees that she and her niece received the best loan terms or financial gain. So let's take a look at our next slide. So here it shows the witnessing by the employees of the Attorney General's office, where she is creating this power of attorney. Letitia James, by her own words, in reality, the power of attorney was not used to determine my eligibility for my niece for a home in the state of Virginia. If this was true, Why was the power of attorney needed in the first place? Additionally, her attorney, Abby Lowell, stated that James assisted her niece who needed financial support with a down payment to purchase the home. I believe he also confirms that the power of attorney mistakenly, he stated the residence would be her primary residence. Once again, I believe that Lowell has inadvertently revealed that James is indeed a co-borrower, and we have already established that the residential conforming loans at that time, 2023, required all borrowers to have the home as their primary residence for 1 year after the close of the loan. Sammy Antar has the smoking gun mortgage rules referenced on his website, whitecollarfraud.com. Now, I'm going to add a fifth pattern in practice that I believe indicates James's mindset. So once again, in 1983, she allowed her father to add her to a mortgage application that mistakenly lists her and her father as spouses. This mistake ensures that they receive the most favorable mortgage terms or financial gain. This mistake was confirmed by her attorney, Abby Lowell, in his letter to Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General. The next pattern and practice comes on January 14, 2001, when James signs and executes a mortgage loan for a 1 to 4 family unit dwelling that was confirmed a mere 19 days prior as a 5-unit dwelling by the New York City Building Department in the certificate of occupancy that was issued. So her attorney Lowell also confirms this mistake. Once again, this mistake ensures that Miss James receives the most favorable mortgage terms or financial gain. If James was sincere, these two mistakes should have made her mindful of errors being made on future documents. But instead, the pattern and practice continues in 2023 with the purchase of the Sterling Street, Norfolk, Virginia property. I have presented you with 5 things I believe shows criminal intent or mens rea, as we explored above from legaldictionary.net website. Sam E. Antar and others have done the grand jury's work for them, and I now present mine, having provided independent analysis. So, in the sanctity of fairness and due process, the Virginia grand jury is doing its own data collection and analysis. The FBI prosecutor will also assist the grand jury with their analysis in determining if there is sufficient evidence to hand down an indictment. I believe, based on the information that I and others have examined and provided commentary on, there is 100% probability the grand jury will hand down an indictment. Not if, but when. So there you have it. All the information that I believe clearly shows that there should be an indictment, so there can be a further examination of the facts to determine if the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, is guilty of mortgage fraud. We have several examples here that I provided and others have provided, and it is just a matter of the grand jury doing its due diligence to confirm the things that we observe with their own data that they have collected. So thank you for sticking with me for this episode. And once again, this is the Paul Lovette Show.